Good morning. I'm Dream Queen. You're in the cab with me. What a pleasant little dusting up here in the high desert. Just a nice little, hey, winter ain't over yet. Just so you don't forget. Changes, y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here this morning. If you could hear the sound of my voice, we're doing all right. We still here. We still got it. We got hope. Sometimes we have to divert from the path that we've thought that was our path, and it maybe hooked so far to the left or to the right, because sorry, I just hit a wall. Why is it so hard out here, yo? Huh? Why is life so hard? I don't know. I know spiritually bypass on this show. I don't even really know what that means. It's only something that I think people with a whole ton of money can do. So that's how I know I'm not doing it. But I am a spiritual person, and I am a seeker and a questioner and a stargazer. And so we're going to talk about astrology. We're going to be astrology bait today. And I'm going to take over the book club with that vein. We're just going to try to, I don't know. That's one of the reasons I look at it. Why is life so hard? And I know bad DJ be out there. Don't ask why. You know what? I'm sorry. I do. It's part of my makeup. Everybody's not the same. Some of us ask why, because I want to stop it. And I know I heard this cat talking the other day, and he said, he sounded like, he fit a certain demographic to me. But I listened anyway because I appreciated the podcast that he was on, and he was talking about appreciating the bad, negative, perceived things that happen to you, the challenges, right? He said that's the next step from acceptance is appreciation and understanding that adverse circumstances provide growth in ways that if you didn't go through them, you wouldn't be who you are, yada, yada, yada. We all heard this, right? And it's still the hardest thing to do. I'm still not at appreciation for everything. And he was saying if you get judgy about things and you want to get involved about things, and take it out of the collective consciousness' hands and make it about you. See, for me, because that's like me. My ego is, I want to make the pain stop. I'm in the healer vibe. Even though people bother me because of, the lack of everything. But we have a lot too. And we just need to help each other out. To stop the pain. I mean, that's simple. So I still don't appreciate witnessing cruelty and war and dismissal and suffering. So I try to figure out why. And astrology is one of these things where you look at it and you can see patterns. Maybe it's a little bit of, spectrum on my part. I'm like, I was playing Miss Pac-Man the other day, and I was like, they changed the maze, and then I went, boo, boo, boo. Because you get in a pattern, I can recognize the patterns, and I wanted to take a look at it with y'all because a lot of astrologers on the internet are doing the talk around how Neptune is moving to be exactly where he was when the Civil War popped off in 1865. And there are people calling for, that reality right now, saying it's inevitable. Well, what's inevitable? What is inevitable, y'all? Can we learn from what we've been through? Can we find the meaning in it all? And if you're not into astrology, or if this is annoying to you, I invite you to turn it off. Because I'm not going to explain why I believe in astrology other than what I just said. I'm not going to talk about science or vibrations or gravitationals, this or that. But I am going to talk about archetypes and collective understanding. When we collectively agree on something, it makes it real. And people have been studying the outer bodies, the planets, for millennia. It's where we get our calendars. It's where we get our navigation. is where we get our light. Everything that makes us, particles. Even if you're just like, I'm the Big Bang guy, I'm the science guy. Big Bang. We're all made up of this stuff. But the main thing that we've been doing before TV or the internet, if any of you young people can imagine a time before a screen, we told stories. We told stories and we created myths and ways of being and laws and rules based on archetypes and stories that we've just made up. And they've been associated with the planets, the gods, if you will. So Caroline Casey, in her book, Making the Gods Work for You, the Astrological Language of the Psyche, she's referring by gods, she's referring to the planets in their mythic garb. We're talking about them in their stories that we've made up about them hundreds of thousands of years ago. She covers a lot of different myths and folk tales in her tellings. She's a really fun person to listen to. I met her back in, I think it was, like the early 2000s when I was working. No, it was, late 90s, 2000s when I was working at WAMU. And I was the audio engineer for Caroline's radio show called the Visionary Activist Show. And on her show, she would do the astrology of the day in relation to politics, the political climate, and environmental justice issues were very much in the forefront. And she would have a guest on often. And, I would record, run the board for the show here, and it would be broadcast, sent over to KPFA in Berkeley. Because I don't think we aired in DC, but she lived in the area, the metro area. And I did a lot of, her remote speaking events as an engineer and got to know her. And she did my birth chart. And, we lost touch, but she still does do the Visionary Activist Show. So if you want to look that up, I encourage it. It was very formative for me. And I still embrace the idea of being a visionary activist. Oh, look, I didn't even mean to open it to this page, but just to give you the idea, she's got 7 principles here for visionary activism. Principle 0, well, I guess I would make it 8. Believe nothing, entertain possibilities. Therefore, everything hereafter is offered playfully. I love that. Caroline's vibe was coyote trickster vibe. And I love to laugh. We have to laugh to keep from crying, as my people would say. Principle 1, imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow. And that's where we're at with Neptune. Imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow. Principle 2, better to create prophecy than live prediction. Better to create prophecy than to live prediction. Principle 3, the invisible world would like to help, but spiritual etiquette requires that we ask. Now, that is one of the things that we consider universal law. There is such a thing as spiritual etiquette, and prayer is deeply involved in asking. Meditation is also a way of asking. But we have to be open to the answer. The answer comes from our higher self, from the collective being us all, including source. And like a child, we often don't want the answer. Anyway, so we refuse to ask, and then we get into these things, and then the lesson, and then, Principle 4, The only way the gods know we're asking for help is ritual. Ritual. And that relates to what I'm saying is like when we pray or meditate, oftentimes there's ritual involved with that. I feel personally like there's a lot, I get overwhelmed by putting too much ritual on it. But I do have certain things like lighting a candle is nice. We like to do that. Little incense, we like to do that. Whatever those methodologies are, deep breaths, whatever it is, you'll find yourself that you have a propensity to do something. And then you can make a ritual as big or as small as you want. However, Casey's suggestion here in Principle 5 is if something's a problem, make it bigger. Now you have to get the book to learn more about what she means by that. We only possess the power, Principle 6, we only possess the power of an insight when we give it expression. When we give it expression. We only possess the power of an insight when we give it expression. Be the thing. Through practice. These are all mine, just trying to understand it with you here. Principle 7. Maybe I'll see if she'll come on. I can try. There's so many people on the internet I want to contact. You guys, I'm just still being a little bit shy. I like being with y'all because I can't see you. Principle 7. Creativity comes from the wedding of paradox. Creativity comes from the wedding of paradox. We aspire to be disciplined wild people who are radical traditionalists. What an interesting list here and concepts. Making the gods work for you, the astrological language of the psyche. She's really an interesting person here, and I love the way she breaks down our relationships with the planets. Each planet has its own chapter. Neptune, the god of dreams. And I'm Dream Queen. And you're in the cab with me. That's all very appropriate. All right, let's get on track. Why not? No, we don't. We're dealing with the ocean here. We're going to go with the flow and ride the waves, huh? New people, we usually do a book club in the second hour. We've been talking about Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. I'm taking a detour today to address the astrological lineup and the current political climate, because everything that we do on this show relates to the macro and the micro. I like to talk about self-awareness and also how we can all get along on this planet and make an equitable society. So thank you for joining. You can learn more about the show in the Cab Radio at Linktree. Has a whole bunch of links that'll take you around. It'll give you resources on the book club that we're doing right now, and it'll also take you to where you can get previously recorded shows. Everything's recorded live, and then I go home and edit it, and it's a whole bunch of fun to hear, which I'll put up with from me. Babbling All in Babylon be the subtitle of this show, and we love it. So the current discussion in my algorithm, I'll just welcome y'all all in, astrological base. The current conversation going on here, people are setting stuff on fire because all of these planets are hanging out in Aries and Pisces right now. So if I'm looking at today's astrological lineup, we've got in Pisces, Saturn, the Sun, the North Node, and Neptune at 29 degrees. Saturn, I've given you all of these in order from 22 degrees, which is very close to the end. Everything has 30 degrees. For people you don't know, each sign has 30 degrees here, from 0 to 29, through 29. And then we have over here in the early degrees of Aries, Venus. She's retrograding a little bit now at 7 degrees. Then we have Mercury, 9 degrees, which is going retrograde right now as we speak, I believe. And then we also have Chiron. And if y'all were tuned in back in November, we were talking about Chiron's movements and Sagittarius and the wound, the wounded healer. Okay. So Pisces right now has what we call a stellium. And that's when I believe it's 3 or more planets where celestial bodies are hanging out in the same sign. And it's kind of a big deal. It puts a lot of energy there. And with the sun being there, the sun is our light. It's where all of a big focus is. Thursday night we had the lunar eclipse in Virgo. We're still feeling that. I said I wasn't going to go on an eclipse because I didn't do eclipse homework. I did Neptune homework, okay? But there's a lot going on in Pisces right now. And that's the sign that Neptune rules along with Jupiter. Piscean energy is very much dreamy, can be disconnected almost from reality. It's very sensitive. Casey would say, because Neptune would be Jupiter's tour guide through Pisces. Whereas Jupiter's journey was an external quest in Sagittarius, here Jupiter dives into the oceanic realms of dreams and mystery. And we're here to learn about the mysteries. Pisces time, where we are right now with the sun, y'all, it's the 12th house. It's the culmination of the whole zodiacal journey. Okay, the sun's journey in the year, each planet's journey through the whole zodiac, and we're sitting there in the dark of winter before the spring of Aries, and that knowledge is integrating. What have we learned? What haven't we learned? The opposite, this is where we come in with the eclipse sitting right on all of this right now, is that Virgo energy of taskmaster, really making a list. It's up to us to take inventory. And the Virgo is holistic. When we call Virgo the virgin, she is the pureness of intention. The grower. We associate Virgo with plants, with healing. And what did we learn? And what didn't we heal? We have to be sensitive and compassionate and caring. We cannot just do escapism. Especially in this society, when I talked about this last week when we were doing talking. And I talked a little bit about media and what we consume, even unbeknownst to us, that can poison our dreams. As Casey makes a reference in the description of Pisces about trust. Who can they let into their zany dreams? Who can they trust not to poison them? And I was talking to a friend of mine about the nonprofit industrial complex and why the taking down of the DEI, whether people are doing it preemptively or being forced to, and all of this stuff, I guess I'm not taking it the same way that some people are taking it. I go back and forth on it, but it's because of trust. It's a trust issue for me. When I worked in nonprofit industrial complex, I experienced discrimination and no support. So when people put things on a piece of paper and they don't back it up with action, it's a violation of trust. And I've been experiencing discrimination since the beginning because of my avatar. So me having personally some Aries complex, Venus and Mars conjunct in Aries at my IC, we're talking astrology, directly opposing my midhaven, which is Libra, and the true node for me. I come from wanting to fight that system of injustice. I can spot it. I'm versed in it. I'm versed in battling injustice. But in the going against, I have to become the thing. I have to wed the paradox, as Casey puts in the list of visionary activist qualities. I'm getting it now. I wed the paradox. and I become justice. Not a vigilante, but I begin to embody the qualities that I feel are associated with justice, and collectively, what we feel is associated with justice. And we come back to collective agreement. So, I want to talk about the outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. We spent some time on Pluto. It was a big deal this summer, right? Everybody's talking about Pluto going into Aquarius, coming out of Capricorn, going back into Capricorn, coming back into... Now we're in it. Pluto's here with us. And Neptune's doing its big shift now. Now the outer planets move slower with us, right? Bigger, wider orbit, way out there. And I like how Caroline Casey, in her book, I like how she describes the outer planets, because I'm just a little dabbler. I'm a dabbler, y'all. But I'm very interested in astrology, and as I read what other people talk about and I listen to other people, so I don't worry about the external planets too much. They just affect everyone. I'm like, what do you mean they just affect everyone? Like, yes, they just affect everyone. Right? We have to look at that. How are we each working with these grand energies that are affecting us all? So she says, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus are the change gods, the forces of dynamic transformation who hold the keys to personal and social liberation. We dance with them now to generate energy which to vitalize the inner gods of individuality. To vitalize the inner gods of individuality. The task of these outer planetary gods is to liberate us from being unconscious subjects of laws that govern the collective and initiate us into being conscious agents of evolutionary intelligence. We have defined evolutionary intelligence as the most ingeniously lively and cooperative possibilities of mutual aid available at any moment. She used words that we use on these shows sometimes. Cooperative, mutual aid, evolutionary intelligence. So we can work together collectively. We are called to work together for the betterment of humanity. If you believe in that sort of thing. If you don't believe in that sort of thing, you're probably not listening right now. So this is for the people who are here. And I appreciate you for doing so. So in the description of Neptune on page 92, she says, Neptune dissolves our old visions and values to allow new visions to come alive. We then become visionaries. Okay. Now, since Pluto is at 3 degrees Aquarius right now, just did its big shift, I'm going to read what she writes about Pluto a little bit as well. Because these are movements that our collective is looking at. Even if you personally aren't watching astrology every day, there's a whole bunch of people who are and have been doing so for thousands of years. And those ancestors and ascended masters are channeling through these folks. And, you know, I'm telling you, Lil Queen Trashmouth and I have talked about the politicians employing their own mystics and astrologers. We know this. Everybody knows this. So we all got teams, right? Pluto is the lord of the underworld, the domain of death, rebirth, initiation, and transformation. Death, rebirth, initiation, and transformation. When Pluto works us over, we first become transformed, then we become agents of transformation. Okay, now I'm going to say it now. Everybody's excited to see Pluto move from old stodgy, restrictive, daddy, teacher, discipline, big old mean Saturn, Capricorn, money, all of these things. I mean, I know it's great. We love Saturn, Taskmaster, keep us on task. Who wants to be on task? I want to play, right? But Saturn and Capricorn say you can't play till the work is done. So then we get Pluto finally gets out of there, and we're in Aquarius, and we're like, yeah, free. We all gonna be free. Well, my free and Elon Musk's free don't look the same. So we still fighting and using the intelligence that we gathered in this previous sign to say, how are we going to take the restrictions that were imposed upon us, acquire our own freedom, define what freedom is, and look at the people outside of myself. How can they be free and me be free at the same time? And we all agree on what free is. That collective vision. Is it possible? Well, I told you I'd tell you what happened in 1865, and I'm going to do that before I go much further. No, I'm sorry, 1861. This is what the people are talking about. All right, so Neptune went 0 degrees Aries on Saturday, April 14th, 1861. Aries is a sign that is associated with war, bloodletting, fierce tempers, impetuous activity, fire. And so a lot of people are using this today to get us worried, but pointing out that coming up here in a couple of weeks. So we're looking at Monday, the 31st. Neptune is going to be 0 degrees Aries again. A couple of other planets that are in the same position. The sun will also be in Aries, just like it was in April of 1861. Mercury will also be in Pisces, as it was in April of 1861. And Venus, on that date this year, will be retrograding in Pisces, but her position is doing that back and forth between Pisces and Aries. Right now, this moment, she's in Aries, stationed. She's retrograding, and she's going to move back all the way into Pisces for a little bit, and then she's going to be going back into Aries. In 1861, Venus was also in Aries. And a lot of people are talking about these interior planets and this activity in Aries, meaning tempers and war, and it's just like it was back then. And I'm trying to highlight some other aspects that are open to possibility for us. I know we got to fight for what's right. And whatever that's going to look like for each individual is how it's going to come out. We need everybody. We need everybody. And for my sensitives, man, it just came over me. I don't know who's out there thinking at me right now, but the sensitives, we gotta stay hopeful, okay? We don't have to reenact what happened back then. And I'll tell you what happened back then. A little story time. On April 12th, this is from the Library of Congress.gov, the Civil War in America. I had Wendy Young on here. She did a whole photo project and a ton of research on the Civil War. You should check it out in the Cab Radio. On April 12th, 1861, the first salvos of the American Civil War were fired with the bombardment of the U.S. garrison at Fort Sumter, located in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. In Charleston Harbor. It stood as one of the last federal outposts in the region. 3 months earlier, on January 28, 1861, George T. Perry submitted this map for copyright. The map carries the following description of the newly completed fort. Fort Sumter is built in the water. Very Neptunian here. Fort Sumter is built in the water. 1,000 yards from the land. It is just finished and is one of the strongest works in the world, mounted with 32-pound cannon and 100 rounds of ammunition per gun. 2 men at one of these could defend it against 500. Alma Pilot made the first photograph of the Confederate flag flying over the fort. So that was when the first shots were fired for the Civil War. Fort Sumner in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina, continued to fire the United States flag even as Confederate forces surrounded it. Lincoln decided to send provisions, but no additional troops or ordnance to the fort unless resistance was met. Unwilling to tolerate a U.S. garrison in Southern territory, Confederates began shelling the fort in the pre-dawn hours of April 12, 1861, and garrison guns responded. The Civil War had begun. Now we look forward to April 12th, exactly 4 years later in 1865. President Lincoln was assassinated on the anniversary of that. So, what did we learn? I think what I'm missing with a lot of disappointed Americans, what I'm missing is that bit of hope that I think people had in the collective dream, in the American dream, that dream of the framers, all men are created equal, which never included women or many of us. I never understood the logic of equating that dream, but I knew a lot of people fought and died to broaden that dream. The American dream for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But life and liberty should be guaranteed. We could chase happiness all day. But many of us aren't entitled to life or liberty. And as we look from winter into spring, which is the movement from Pisces into Aries, from winter, the dream time, we've taken everything into the underworld. We've stared at the reflective surface of the water, pontificated, reflected, gone deep. Then we push up through and become spring. Not only in Aries is what we're fighting for, but what will we become when we've watered everything that we've sowed over the past cycle? America, in the 50s, they brought the flag back, that Confederate flag that had not been flown. They brought it back to enforce fear and double down on Jim Crow laws during the Civil Rights Movement. That's when we saw the resurgence of the Confederate flag. To this day, people are still fighting over taking down Confederate monuments, putting them back. We have to address the dream and the nightmare that we're waking up from. Are we going to continue with the nightmare? You got movies. Everybody's asking me if I saw the new Civil War movie. No, I didn't watch that. Come on, y'all. It's our habits to go ahead and watch stuff like that. I'm probably going to watch some trash this weekend, but we got to just, the collective dream. Go in with your eyes open. I don't want another Civil War, but it's looking, to me, I feel like it's just, things are very uncertain. I don't do predictive astrology, and that's what I think it gets me a little bit in trouble. I want to look at the patterns, but then I come out and I want to maintain hope. But I feel like I do my best to do that for y'all every week. At the same time, I know that we can change. So thanks for everybody who's been protesting and been out in the streets, and everything that you've done is not illegal. Return your Tesla to the dealership. Please do that. I have about 4 more minutes with you. I'm just going to say a couple of things that I've highlighted here. Conscious kinship. In Caroline Casey's book, Neptune says that the greatest of our illusions is separateness. I've said that on this show so many times when we're reading Martin Luther King. It's so important to understand that. It's an illusion. We must heal the illusion of isolation, she says. And let's see. I had some closing thoughts. So I had to skip to the close since I went a little off. Each of us has an important vision for the community and a part to play in the guiding mythology of kinship. The Lakota seer Black Elk said that we all, at some point in our lives, have a great vision for the well-being of our community, but we often go to sleep to our dream rather than awakening it through creative expression. That's where I've wanted us to bring Venus in. Venus also being in Aries right now. It's the natal placement for me. Creative expression is so important. It puts the first steps, tangibility of our vision. I really liked how Caroline Casey had said, I skipped over this part, but it's the, oh man, she said, okay, I got to find it I'm going to find it super fast. It's right here. The early Kabbalists, in pondering how God could create the universe using nothing outside of God, mused, how do we humans create using no material outside ourselves? They answered, with our imagination. We and everything else are made in God's image, meaning not that we look like old men with beards, but that we are dreamed in the imagination of the divine. By analogy, our imagination is the divine part of us that links us in a collaborative endeavor with God to co-create the most ingenious, ongoing, symbiotic evolution possible. As we are dreamed by the gods, we in turn dream reality into being. That's Caroline W. Casey, Making the Gods Work for You, the Astrological Language of the Psyche. Spent a long time with it, but it's a couple 100 pages and it's a really good book. It's fun to read, and it has a great understanding of astrology and the planets and mythology and storytelling. Just the storytelling and the incorporation of myth into our lives and our psyche alone is just worth the read. It's fun. It's easy. I did not tell her that I was going to be doing that. I follow her online, so I got to send her a note. I think I took some snippets. Thank you so much for rolling. Thanks for humoring me. I hope that some points got across and it was inspiring. Half my notes didn't get said, as often is the case on this show. I love every single one of y'all for participating with me. In the Cab Radio is produced by Jada White, aka Dream Queen. Original theme music produced by Baby Weekend Boys and Icky Mac the Beat Jugular. Learn more at In the Cab Radio at Linktree. Thank you so much for tuning in.